forces them out and becomes the leader. Okay? Today we're going to go over some of the times where this has happened and where America has been involved in it. And then just some issues that they still have today. Please face forward, JT. All right. So, something to understand about the current state of Central American governments, they struggle with democracy. Okay, they're filled with political turmoil. Does anybody know what the term political turmoil means? Yes. What?
Where do we write this?
You don't need to write this down if there's not a box for it. Could anybody tell me what political turmoil means? This word right here. Yes, JT.
People are fighting over the turmoil. Or countries kind of.
Okay, people are fighting over the country. That's a good thing to add to it. Justine?
No, it's fighting over politics.
Okay, tons of fighting over politics, yeah?
It's not very steady, stable government.
Okay, no steady or stability? Yes, Adam.
Is it like certain stage? What?
Just let him talk, please.
Is it like a I don't know.
Are you looking at the Google definition right now?
Yeah.
All right, so something you need to understand is essentially what it means is one government gets put in place and then another group comes over and takes over the government. So now there's a new government and then somebody else takes it over. So it's never stable or it's never the same, okay? There's essentially two different types of governments that have been going back and forth in many Central American countries. There are governments that are authoritarian, and then there's governments that attempt to be communist. Now, authoritarian, for a government to become authoritarian, I want you to think of a military takeover. So what that means is that essentially some guy who gets a lot of power, has soldiers following him, has a lot of weapons, can violently take control of the government. Okay, they'll do this by using force, by attacking. All right, and that's why they're able to control the government. All right, as soon as they get to power, everyone is essentially living in a world of fear. All right, do as the dictator says or face punishments, which could mean your life. So essentially, they get into power by using force and keep that power by making sure the population is afraid of them. All right. The opposite, okay, or not the opposite, the other way that, or the other switch or type of government that we'll see is a communist government. Now, they're never truly communist, but there are attempts at it. All right. What this means is that, and what happens is when there's an authoritarian government, okay? It's just one guy who scares everybody, all right? But then there's a big group of the population that sits there and said, this guy's not right. I don't like living here. Let's form our own army and establish a communist government, okay? These are normally, it's going to be started from people who are poor, okay? People who are oppressed in this authoritarian government. Okay, and they're going to sit there and say, well, we're going to take over the government, and then we're going to create this new government that is communist where everybody is equal. So the idea is that everybody has something to eat, everybody has a place to live, we're all equal, I don't care what job you do, the government will give everybody the same amount of money. So in theory, it sounds great. In practice, it never works. Okay? So even in theory, the idea that two people get paid the same for doing the same job doesn't really make any sense either. Because then someone's working way harder than somebody else. But either way, everyone in their ideal world, what they're trying to establish is everybody is completely equal and everyone is happy and friends. That's what they think is going to happen if they overthrow the government and get to power. Okay? And then the economy, so whatever they do for money is controlled by the government. So essentially, if let's say they do farming, the whole country is split up into little plots of land. Everybody has one. They give all their food to the government, and then the government redistributes it to everybody. All right, so these are the two groups that go back and forth. They're the two ideas that go back and forth. You have military-based authoritarian governments or communist governments, or attempts at communist governments. Can I move forward?
Yeah.
No. Hey man, what's going on back there, man? I saw the light just start flashing from your
My iPad
screen.
was like glitching out.
Oh no, okay, you were playing a game back there. I know it. It was like a win. It was one of those things that said winner, 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 winner. I bet. All right, I'm gonna go forward. All right, so Central America is going to become really important for the United States during the Cold War. So essentially, the Cold War was this period of time from the 1950s to the early 1990s, or the end of the 1940s, the end of the 1940s to the early 1990s, where essentially two superpowers, the United States and the Soviet Union, which is current-day Russia, are going to be struggling for power in the world. The Soviet Union is a communist country, so they want communism to spread around the world. The United States is a democracy, so we want everybody in the world to be a democracy and have voting rights. Like, that would be pretty cool. Okay? The reason why this has an impact on Central America is because why wouldn't the United States want a Central American country to become communist? It's pretty obvious. Anyone have any ideas? Yes.
Close to home.
It's very close to us.
What is?
Yeah, and nukes, right? Because then they could send
Wait,
them
how?
places.
Russia's
But-
too close?
So, no, Russia's not. But let's say there's a communist government in Guatemala,
And they're trying to take over. Okay.
and then they would be allies of the Soviet Union. So it's very close to us. And then, of course, there's the whole fear of, well, what if then people from Guatemala start moving to the United States, and then there's communists in the United States, and then we become communists? It's a little over the top ridiculous. But we were very concerned about it, yes.
Like, there were a lot of proxy wars, which is like wars in smaller countries backed by the U.S. and Soviet Union.
That's exactly what a lot of these will be, is proxy wars. Yeah. They do them. They did them all over the world, all over the world. Okay. So, anyways, the important thing to understand about the Cold War is that basically the United States is paranoid about the spread of communism. Because of that, we start doing something called containment, which means we're going to try to stop that spread. Okay. We're going to be involved in many global conflicts, many of which will be in Central America. All right. If you don't have all that word for word, that's fine. Yes.
Is this a submission?
I might make it one on Monday, just so that this way it won't be on this quarter. Okay. All right. So, anyways, 1950s. Okay. There was a conflict in Guatemala. Okay, the President of the United States is Eisenhower. This is not for homework. The President of the United States is Eisenhower. What's going on in Guatemala is that they just got taken over by a communist guy named Jacobo Arbenz Guzman. Right? And the reason why the United States is going to get involved here is there's a big American company in Guatemala. Okay, it's called the United Fruits Company, and it's now called Chacuita. Has anyone ever seen that in the grocery store? You get bananas or yeah.
Oh, Chiquita?
Yeah.
Oh, your bananas are the best.
Yeah, so it's a big company that's still around today. And essentially, Guzman is going to sit there and go, okay, so I've got control of the government. We're now going to establish our communist government. All right? So everyone's going to be equal. Everyone's going to have to own the same amount of land. So they start dividing the country up into little plots of land. Much of this land is controlled by this big American fruit company. Okay? So all of a sudden, this big fruit company is in a crisis mode because they have all these people coming to their farm saying, this is my land now. That's what Guzman said, it's mine. So I can do whatever I want here. And the fruit company's like, no, it's not. We paid for it. We've been here for years. You can't have it. So essentially, it's creating this slightly international conflict for the United States because, one, they don't want there to be a communist country just so close to the United States, and two, it's affecting their businesses. So President Eisenhower sends down the CIA to form a counter rebellion group that is going to be an authoritarian group. All right. Essentially, they are going to build a large rebel army. They train the whole army, give them American weapons, and then that group ends up overthrowing Guzman, and the communists are no more in Guatemala. Now they have an authoritarian dictatorship. Okay, so now they have a dictator. He's not a communist, though, so because of that, our fruit company is completely fine, and we all get to eat bananas for, 50 cents a banana instead of $5. So that was the whole big push for that. You just stretching out?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So essentially, the United States got involved here to make sure that government was not communist, even if it meant putting a dictator in power, because it essentially protected their self-interest of containment, so stopping communism, and because it helped protect their fruit company. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Can I go forward?
No.
No. You guys can summarize. You don't need to write word for word what I put up there. Well, I'm sorry. I figured it was obvious. That's my fault.
I mean, I can get this.
Any questions about anything I've gone over so far? No? Okay. So a similar thing's going to happen a couple years later in Nicaragua. Oh, nope. Okay, in Nicaragua, President Reagan was the president at the time from 1980 to 1988. And essentially this group called the Sandinistas are going to take control of the Nicaraguan government. All right, they establish a communist government. All right, and because of that, the United States is going to do a similar thing, except this time they don't send the CIA down. They actually send military down to train this rebel army. Once again, they give them weapons, tanks, military equipment that would make it so it would be almost impossible for the Sandinistas to win. Except then the Sandinistas got backed by the Soviet Union, so they had similar weapons. All in all, it's been a power struggle ever since, flipping back and forth. Okay, the United States backed Contras. The rebel army won for a while. They were in power for almost 10 years, and then they lost control again. And Daniel Ortega, who was the leader of the Sandinistas originally, is actually currently the president there and the leader of that country. So right now, they do have control. He's a communist, but he's kind of shifted his beliefs to where we're not actually going to do communism. I'm just going to be the dictator, and you guys are going to do what I say. So I'll show you what's kind of going on there currently in a second. Wait. Why?
Is that everything?
That's the last of the notes. Does anyone know anything about Nicaragua Today? Anyone heard about them in the news?
I think you spelled it wrong. I think it says Nicaragua.
No, I think I did spell it wrong. I remember that now. I got made fun of for it last year, and I never fixed it. Look at me. Just the teacher of the year over here. All right.
Nope.
Come on. What are you writing?
The last one.
Currently led by Daniel Ortega, who is a communist, however, power is still shifting back and forth. Okay, you got it, right?
No.
No. Just do it.
No.
Yeah.
No.
President.
I finished.
Wait, are you writing it? You've been writing it?
Okay,
Wait, I literally had 2 more.
I'll go back to it in a second.
Oh.
Back and forth. It's back and forth. All right. Shh. All right, Nicaragua Today. Stop. Okay, Nicaragua Today. So as I told you, Daniel Ortega is still the leader of the country. And basically, the young people in Nicaragua have been protesting because Daniel Ortega has become more and more of a dictator, taking away more and more of their freedoms. So because of that, people have been protesting a lot. We all live in DC. We know what protests look like.